everyone to our career chat series, very first When I Grow Up career chat series. And for this particular series, we are featuring nursing as the major of study or the career path. Um, Today we have the privilege of having a nursing student. Her name is Amanda Cohn. Is that correct?
Yes.
And she is here with us to talk about her uh, career path to nursing, her experiences as a nursing student, as well as whatever challenges that she has been experiencing or anything about nursing. So welcome Amanda to our career chat series, and thank you so much for agreeing to do the interview with us. We're so happy to have you here with us today. So if you can just please tell us about yourself. Um, what year are you in college right now, and maybe your likes and dislikes, where you live, just something general.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. So I live in Peoria. I am married and I have a very little bit of healthcare experience in my background. I chose a concurrent enrollment program that you pair with the community college and the universities. So I actually attend the community college and earn my nursing or prepare for my nursing license. And then online at home, I earn my bachelor's degree. And so I know that I believe the Flagstaff Community College has that concurrent program. But all of the Maricopa community colleges down in Phoenix have it, and they pair with tons of university, including ASU and NAU, and some of the other ones.
That is so cool. You can actually get the degree all at the same time in that small amount of time. So what made you decide to take up nursing? Like why did you choose that career?
So I have always loved science, and I have always found the human body to be really interesting. And I have always been a people person. I love to take care of people. And so it was kind of a normal transition to pick nursing. Um,
Uh-huh.
I originally went to MA school because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a nurse. And so I did medical assisting for 10 years and then thought, yeah, nursing is definitely what I want to do. And I'm so glad that I signed up for it.
Wow. I know sometimes I do know I have read an article that in a person's life they can actually have at least five careers. Like it took me a long time as well to figure out that, oh, I wanted to go into education. I wanted to be a teacher, and I did that when I was in my 40 when I was 40 years old. So I also spent a long time in different industries before I finally decided I want to be a teacher. So did anyone influence you other than the fact that you kind of, you were exposed to helping or take care of people, but did anyone in your family or a friend or that inspired you to take up nursing? I'm just
So
curious.
no, I didn't have anybody, friends or family that influenced me. Um, but I would say I had a teacher in high school. Um,
Ah,
So I knew that I loved healthcare and I knew that I wanted to do something. What I didn't know, it's such a huge area. So in my high school, they had an allied health program where
uh-huh.
they allowed high school students to go and shadow in different areas of medicine.
Wow.
And I was able to go to the state hospital, Maricopa Medical Center, and
Ah,
I shadowed a nurse in the pediatric emergency room. And we had this baby that was super sick, dehydrated. We had to perform a catheter, we had to get blood from them. And this nurse was so amazing because, in the chaos of the mom being upset, the baby screaming, she was calm, cool, collected. She talked to the mother. She taught me what, she was doing,
uh-huh.
and she was able to collect everything off the baby, and she just had this aura of like knowledge and calm, and I could tell. I was like, that's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be someone like
Yep.
that.
Yeah, it's really amazing when we encounter people that become role models. Like I remember my algebra teacher. The
Oh,
way she would when it was her first baby. So every algebra time she would be sitting on her she actually would sit on her desk and she'll rub her tummy just like that. But she was a great algebra teacher. But she was very inspirational too. So when you decided you were going to take up nursing, did anyone help you? Was there like like what we do in ACRC, help you uh go from your financial aid going to that career path, basically guiding you in filing, completing an application, scholarship, and all that kind of thing?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we actually had pre-nursing meetings at the community college that I would attend. And at that point, we were able to meet with um, advisors. I'm not sure if they were financial advisors or they were nursing advisors, is what we would.
Oh, okay, okay.
And we would pick one, and then we would stick with that one person, and they would help us to complete our applications. They would answer questions, make sure we were on track to get all the classes we needed. They would give us tips and tricks if we, maybe were struggling with the entrance exam. They would give us different materials to help us. So there was absolutely, definitely a lot of people that were willing to help for any questions that I had, and filling out the FAFSA and getting scholarships and all that stuff.
Was this prior to you applying to the college, the community college, or were you just inquiring then? Because
This was just inquiring. So
wow.
yeah, so I knew that I wanted, once I decided on nursing, I decided. But even before I had like fully made the decision to go back to
Uh-huh.
school, I was interviewing different schools, and I liked the amount of help that the community colleges were willing to give. And I felt like they were very knowledgeable, and I felt like there was a lot of resources for me being an older student going back
Yeah.
to school. I felt like there was just a lot of opportunity to ask questions
Oh,
and
that's good.
get help.
Yeah, that's good. So, that's really cool. The fact, because when your sister told me on how you can get that degree in such a short amount of time, that really helps a lot, especially with older students who needs to manage time more wisely in a sense because we have other responsibilities. So, can you describe to us a typical day for you as a student? Like, because you did mention that you are taking classes with the community college as well as an online class, I believe. Is that what you said? Through ASU. So describe to us a typical day.
So right now we are doing virtual. We do
Hmm.
virtual lectures. So a normal day would be, we usually start lecture around 8 a.m. and we're on virtual lecture for about 4 hours, and then we break, and then we come back for a couple hours in the afternoon. So I'm usually on a virtual class from about 8 to 2. um, and it sounds like a lot. That sounds like a long period of time, but it is interactive. We ask questions to the teacher, she
Uh,
asks us questions. We sometimes break off into small groups and we do like activities together, so it is really interactive. um, if we weren't during COVID, I would be in the classroom for that time, and it would be the same kind of stuff, just in person.
um, y-
Oh, go ahead.
no, no. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish it. I
Um,
just had this line of thought.
I was going to say, usually about once a week. So I wouldn't say it's a normal day, but about once a week, we have what we call lab. And so we
Uh-huh.
go into school for some kind of lab. So either a simulation lab where there's mannequins that have blood pressure and they breathe and they blink, and we interact with them as our patients. And then at nighttime, I usually log on to my ASU courses. And so during my nursing semester, I have one ASU course that I will take on top of my nursing courses, but my ASU doesn't stop for the summer like
Ah.
community college does. And so during the summer, I take 2 or 3 classes, and that's how they're able to match it a little bit, go a little bit quicker.
So you mentioned that you're taking it with Glendale, correct, and ASU. So how long would be the program be? Because a community college would be a 2 years, right? And then now with the ASU, so how long would the program be once you're done with it, in a sense?
So my program is an one extra semester. So I will graduate from GCC in May, and at that point, I'll be able to sit for my registered nurse state board exam, and I could start working at that time. And then in December, I'll graduate with my BSN. But I should mention that some of the other colleges graduate at the same time, like NAU, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You graduate with your nursing from the community college in May, and you will also graduate from NAU in May. So it can differ a little bit depending on your community college. Um,
Okay.
so for me, it's one more semester, and that's it.
So how many years total would that be? Would that be a two and a half or three?
Yeah, two and a
Two
half.
and a half, and you have your BSN?
Yes.
Holy cow, that's really cool. It took me 7.5 to get my master's. So that's really cool. Um, so the your classes with ASU, are they the core classes? Because you mentioned GCC would be your nursing classes.
Yes.
Okay, so then what kind of classes are you taking at with ASU?
A lot of the like public relations, public health nursing,
Ah,
some of the like nursing writing, that kind of stuff. More of
yeah.
the, I believe that's more of the bachelor side of it.
Okay, I see. So
Yeah.
then the GCC would be more on the core itself, the nursing classes, and that would be where your practicum would be as well?
Yes.
Okay. So I gather that even you mentioned you go to the lab, so you're still able to do some practicum or practical classes or lab classes in spite of COVID, you go there.
Yes.
That's cool. That's really good. So what is what class or what is the how should I say what do you like best about your major of study or your course, your program, so to speak? What is it that you like the best?
Oh man, I love it all. I really do. It's,
That's great.
I've had a really amazing experience. All my teachers are nurses. Every single one of,
Wow.
and even at the ASU level, they're all nurses. So they really understand how it is to sit where I'm sitting. Um, Nursing school's not easy. No one says it's easy, but they care so much. They're so knowledgeable. I mean, I've had teachers that I just sit there and I'm almost in awe of them because they have so much information to give, and they can take something that's so complex and break it down in a way that you're just like, wow, I never would have thought of it like that, but it completely helps you to understand. So I've had a really good experience, but I would say probably my favorite part is interacting with patients. So
Mm.
the fake patients, when you have the mannequins.
The mannequins.
Yeah,
Well,
that's,
see, they don't answer back to you. They don't answer back to you.
no, they do.
Oh, they do? Are
Yeah,
they like robots that they
yeah.
can actually oh my gosh, I thought they were just like what was that, the mannequin that you use for CPR?
Oh no, no. They're really cool mannequins. I don't know if you've watched Grey's Anatomy.
Yes,
But
I do. I have in the past. Yes.
there's an episode where George has a mannequin and it's like bleeding, and it's
Okay.
Keith behind him talking. That's kind of what they're like. So
Oh,
they have a
boy,
pulse.
technology really have gone so far.
They're fun though. It's fun, and you'll have your teacher or a
Uh-huh.
teacher talking back to you. But it's really enjoyable because it really does give you the feeling that you're there in the hospital. It's set up like a hospital. It's a hospital bed. You draw blood on them. You start catheters on them, take their pulse. It's very realistic for being a mannequin.
Yeah, I'd like to see one. I'm so just used to, I forgot what we call the mannequin we used for CPR. We used to have a, oh, Annie, Annie.
Oh,
Yeah. I thought it was just Annie that you're working with. But what is it the least that you like, or how should I say, what you do not like? What is it that you do not like about the program? I'm sorry.
oh, the tests are hard. Yeah,
I could
I mean,
imagine. I
it's
can
you know,
imagine. A
it's
lot of
not.
theory,
I'm sorry.
a lot of facts.
Yeah, it's nursing school is a different way of thinking, and it's not bad. Um, it's good because they're teaching you how to think like a nurse, and so
Mm.
they do it in small increments. But um, there's people that will say like the test questions are which answer is the most correct. And so there's a joke like a pile of oranges. It's like which one's the most orange?
Ah, so there's probably a lot of trick questions.
There can be, yeah,
Uh-huh.
there can be. But and I don't care for the tests, but I do learn from the tests. And the teachers allow us to have test review afterwards with them,
Okay.
and you learn a lot. You really
Yeah,
do.
so do you have like a written test as well as the mannequin test?
Yes.
Ah,
Yes.
yeah. Good. That's really cool. I still can't believe about the mannequin. So what personal qualities do you think a person should have to take up nursing or to take up this major of study? Because a lot of people would say, "Oh, I wanted to be like this," but they're really not cut out to be one. Like for me, like I've been in several classrooms as a substitute, as a teacher's aide, and I always think, well, that person should have not been a teacher to begin with. Like what personal qualities, even like I guess in undertaking the course studies.
I would say the biggest thing that you need is compassion. Because if you go into nursing for the money, they'll say that you're going to have a hard time in nursing.
Mm.
So although nurses do make a very decent living, you know, um, the money shouldn't draw you to nursing. The fact that you want to work with patients and that you want to help people, that's what needs to draw you to nursing. Um, and then also being able to be organized, I would say, and that's something you can learn. So
Mm-hmm.
you're a high school
Mm-hmm.
student and you're not organized yet, you can
Yeah.
absolutely learn it. But when it comes to nursing school, there's a lot of things you have to keep in place. Dates, times, things can change. So I would definitely say compassion and organization.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine because it's not easy to become a nurse in the sense of like if I think about it, I know I cannot handle needles for one thing, so I cannot do a what do you call it, I can't take blood, obviously I cannot do injections or anything. So I know I'm not cut out I am compassionate, I love helping people, but not in a different capacity. Nothing to do with physical. Are you working right now while in school or not?
I did not.
Okay.
I had the option to not work while I was in school,
Mhm.
but I have many classmates that do work during school, so it is possible. But that would just mean that you would need to step up your level of organization just that much more. So it's totally possible and doable. I know quite a few students who are working full time, 3 days a week. They find a hospital job
Yeah.
and they make it work just fine. I know a couple who work part time and they make it work just fine. So definitely possible.
Okay. Will you recommend it though, from what you've seen from your peers, from your other nursing peers though?
Um, that one's a hard one only because I know some people don't have the option to not work.
True.
Um, I would say
True.
if you have the option to not work, don't work during nursing school because
Mm-hmm.
it is very time consuming. Um, and it gives you a little bit more of a cushion to get things done and maybe not feel so stressed out about time frames.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you have to work, you can do it. It's just a little bit harder.
I would imagine it would really take a lot of organizational skills on your part to really, manage your time working and school at the same time. So, when you graduate from ASU as well as GCC, you'll have you said BSN. Do you have any plans of advancing your degree?
Possibly. You know, I have thought that maybe I would really like to be a nurse practitioner. That's something that seems really interesting to me. But one of the great things about nursing is that you can go to nursing school and you can be done. That could be your career path.
That's
So,
true.
um, that's also kind of appealing. But they
Uh-huh.
also have master's programs for nurses. So I have absolutely looked at, advancing, going further. Um, there's some really great transition to nurse practitioner, like some bridge programs, I should say, that have some really great options for RNs.
Is the masters, when you do the masters, would that make you a nurse practitioner or not yet? That would be more of an art. Oh, it can.
Yeah, so you can choose to do a master's of nurse practitioning. I do believe at some point in the future they're trying to make it a doctorate, but as of right now, it is a master's. So you could go on and get your master's as a
Okay.
nurse practitioner, but you can also get a master's and not be a nurse practitioner. So there's different options.
When you graduate with your BSN, is that like a license? You get a license, is that a licensed nurse, correct? Or more
So
than
how
that?
that works is my ADN, which is what I'm getting at the community college,
Mm-hmm.
will allow me to sit for the license. So
Ah,
you actually don't have to have a bachelor's to be a licensed nurse or a registered nurse. Um, but a lot of the hospitals now want you to have your bachelor's, and that's why this program, this concurrent enrollment program, was created so that people could earn their ADN, get to sit for their license, but then also earn their BSN.
that's good. That's really good. And you said other universities offer the same program.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yes. If I'm
Okay.
not mistaken, I believe it was the Phoenix Community Colleges and NAU that created this program
Hmm.
years ago. So NAU was the original university, and then a couple others joined on. I'm at ASU, and then I believe Upper Iowa is one of them, and
Is
there's
U of A? Does U of A have a similar program? No?
no, not that I'm currently aware of.
Okay.
But there is a couple choices when if this is a program that you choose to do, that you don't have to choose just one university.
Well, that's a really good program because a lot of our students like to start off with community colleges because it's a little cheaper. And if they want to stay closer to home, they're not ready yet to branch out and move out of the house, or they have to take care of family. So that's really great that they can start off if they wanted to pursue nursing, that they know that they can start at a community college. So that's really good. So um, how has your educational journey been so far? How has it been really great? And based from what you have been telling me and from the look on your face, the happiness on your face, it seems like it's a wonderful journey so far. So,
Yeah, I absolutely love. I enjoy school. I think it's fun. I would say I wouldn't didn't enjoy school when I was younger. So high school, it's not. I wasn't that kind of person that loved high school and that kind of stuff. But I feel like once I got into nursing school, you learn such interesting things, especially if you're someone who loves the sciences and who
uh-huh.
loves, the body and that kind of stuff. You learn such great things. I've had nothing but amazing, knowledgeable teachers. My students in my class with me, we stay with the same 31 students throughout the entire 2 years. So you get to know them really well and you kind of form this little family, you know,
Uh-huh.
uh, and it's just a really good experience.
That's good. So, what can a high school student do to prepare for a nursing career?
It's
Like
a great
maybe like,
question.
yeah.
So
Like from, I know I'm not sure since you like the sciences, so I'm pretty sure like when you were in high school you were taking science classes,
yeah,
but just a little bit like what advice can you give to a student, to a high school student, a senior who's thinking of taking nursing as their career path?
I would say volunteer and shadow in medical facilities. I know that most facilities allow volunteers, and if
Mm-hmm.
you let them know that you're thinking about pursuing nursing, they usually try to place you somewhere where you won't have any clinical hands-on responsibilities. Usually, it'll be like helping patients and that kind of stuff, but it will allow you to see what a day in the life of a nurse really looks like and
Mm-hmm.
to see if that's something that really appeals to you or not. Most hospital systems will do that. There's programs, I believe, through different high schools and colleges that will allow you to go shadow. And I would
Mhm.
definitely try to get exposure to the healthcare field as much as possible.
Do they do candy striper volunteers here in Arizona?
Yeah, yeah, I actually did when I was much younger. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
know that Banner has volunteers and Honor Health has volunteers, and I'm assuming some of the other ones do too. But you
Okay.
can be as young as 12 and volunteer in different
Okay.
areas.
Yeah, yeah. I do remember that because I used to work part-time at a hospital in New Jersey, where I came from. And I believe they were 12, 13 years old, and they would normally just help out. They set them up in different departments, so to speak, but most of them are doing the wheel of transport. That's what they
Yes.
would do, right? Transport, or they would have to pick up something from pharmacy or from lab, and then they would take it to the nursing what do you call that, the wherever the nursing
Nursing
see now
station.
I'm at a loss. What do you call that enclave at the floor?
The nursing station.
Nursing station, that's it. I had an ESL moment for that time. Yeah, so yeah, because they had that, and they had the uniform thing, so that's good. I do know Banner Health is opening up here in Prescott.
Oh,
um
really?
yes, near Embry Riddle. They're and I think if it's not Dignity, I believe Dignity is another one. I believe Dignity is taking over the regional hospital here in Yavapai County. So,
Oh, that's
but
really
I'm pretty
great.
sure that they may have also volunteer, high school students volunteer in the hospital.
Oh, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for that wealth of information, Amanda. I'm kind of like thinking, oh, I want to be, I think I want to take up some, not nursing classes, but just the lab, like shadow the lab, because that would be really cool, for an interactive mannequin to work with. Which I can understand why they have to up the game with that, because especially now that you can't really go to the hospital to volunteer to do your practicum, so to speak. You need more realistic, I would say, resource to work with to practice the skills. So yeah, thank you very much. That was really very informative, Amanda. We really appreciate your time.
Oh, of course.
And I will be sharing the recording of this to see how we did. And again, thank you very much. Folks, thank you so much for watching our When I Grow Up career chat series. And we thank Amanda Cohn again for spending her precious time with us and sharing information about nursing and her experiences. And I'm so happy that you're really enjoying what you do, because it really makes a big difference if you're passionate about what you're doing, because time just flies by. And like you said, um nursing, if you're thinking about money, just if you want to take up nursing, it's not really gonna do anything to you. You just be miserable because you just went in for the money. And unfortunately, like teaching, you don't go into teaching to make money, because we don't make a lot of money. We really don't. But the rewards paid off. The rewards are much greater than the monetary payment, the monetary reward, so to speak. So thank you again, Amanda. And we hope to see you again soon. All right. Thanks. Bye. Today we are still our focus again on the career is nursing. And today we have Gretchen. How do you pronounce your last name, Gretchen?
Vollbrecht?
Correct?
Vollbrecht.
Vollbrecht. Okay, so today, this morning, we have Gretchen Vollbrecht, who is a nurse practitioner, and she will tell us everything about her journey to this career, the education that she pursued, and her experiences as a nurse practitioner. Good morning, Gretchen. We welcome you to our career chat series, and thank you very much for accepting the invite.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. So, we're gonna start with just if you can just tell us something about yourself. Where you're from, where do you work? Just a short tidbit for our viewers.
Okay, so I grew up in Minnesota, and
Oh,
I went to college in Washington State at Whitman College. I did my graduate work at Seattle University, and I have worked in all different types of clinics. I am currently working for Coconino County, helping with vaccinations and COVID testing. And right prior to that, I worked over at Northern Arizona University in their campus health department.
Ah, okay. So tell us, Gretchen, what made you choose nursing? Like why this particular career?
So I got here in sort of a convoluted way, but essentially I have an undergraduate degree in anthropology,
Hmm.
and after I finished my degree, I got married and I had a baby, and I found the process of being pregnant and maternity care and labor and delivery really fascinating. And so when my child was about 3, I decided I was interested in going back to school to become a midwife. And so started taking various classes that I needed as prerequisites to do sort of a lay midwife position, and just found medicine to be absolutely fascinating. So that's sort of how I landed there. And I think I find science and medicine intellectually interesting, and I really like working with people. So it's a great match for me in terms of my personality. So I find
Oh,
it interesting, and
that,
I find people great, and so it's good combination.
that's really interesting how you went from anthropology to midwife and then, nursing. Was there anyone, or is there someone, or was there someone that inspired you to continue on to this path of nursing? Maybe a colleague or a professor or
Um,
no?
I, I would have to say that there was not a single person. I think when I started to get interested in midwifery, I did quite a bit of informational interviewing with midwives that I knew, just to understand kind of the work that they were doing and how they got to the position that they got into. And I became, I was initially interested in working as in Washington State, it was called a certified midwife. So there was a program, and you were recognized by the state. So it wasn't that you were just
Mm.
practicing on your own without any licensure. And I did a bunch of informational interviewing with some midwives who were doing that, and decided that I didn't like this idea of potentially ending up at someone's house for 4 days while a woman was in labor. I was and without the possibility of maybe accompanying that woman to the hospital if they had to get transferred. And so I then started to pursue this idea of becoming basically a nurse practitioner midwife,
Uh-huh.
a nurse midwife. And so then did a bunch of informational interviewing with women who were doing that, and really thought that that is what I wanted to do. And at the end of the day, I did not end up doing that. I ended up going into family practice, which is, I think, a better fit, and actually has more job opportunities. So it wasn't a single person, and it was really just that opportunity to ask people what they do for work and how they got there, and then what did they like and not like about their jobs.
That's great information. So I guess you would say that you were able to really gather a lot of information just based on interviewing people that are actually on the field and are professionals in that particular um, jobs, so to speak. So
Yeah.
so you mentioned that you currently work for Coconino County with vaccine, and you worked prior to that you worked at the NAU Health Clinic. So can you just describe to us like a typical day currently, what you're doing right now, like the task or work that you do with
I
a
think it's
vaccine?
probably better. It's probably better if I describe to you what a typical day of a nurse practitioner in a clinic
Sure,
looks
yeah.
like, because that has been most of my career. I have a little over 14 years of experience working as a nurse practitioner. So, and I've worked in a number of different settings, but the general gist of the job is seeing patients. So it depends on the clinic you work for, but you could have as short as 15 minutes with a patient, and you could have as long as an hour, and it really depends. And sometimes that means the type of job you end up taking based on how long you can spend with patients. But essentially, there's always another patient waiting. So you see the patient, which involves basically getting a history, doing some type of physical exam, and then deciding what you think the most common reasons for their symptoms would be, and choosing what you think is probably the most likely, ordering tests to help support that idea, and then coming up with a plan of care and treatment. Then try to hopefully get your charting done before you go see the next person, and then go see the next person. So, and it depends on the clinic you work for. You could see as few as 10 patients a day, and you could see as many as 30. So it can be a very high pressure environment. So if this is a career you're interested in, you really need to be okay with sort of being behind the 8 ball all day, because the time is critical, and time meaning 2 minutes is important. So, and then between patients at lunch, at the end of the day, when I first get there in the morning, you're looking at your inbox, and you're looking at labs and imaging and specialists reports and reviewing those. You're contacting patients or refilling medications. So you're basically taking care of patients outside of clinic hours. That's pretty much the job, unless you work your way into sort of an administrative role. Otherwise, it's patient care, whether you're with the patient or whether you're doing stuff that's supporting the patient when they're not with you.
Okay, so it seems like the work that you do, or the work of a nurse practitioner, is almost the same as a GP or a general practitioner.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, nurse practitioner is new to me. I came from New Jersey, and we don't have a lot of nurse practitioner practicing or doing the task that a nurse practitioner does here in Arizona. I'm sorry, I was gonna say Pennsylvania. I moved around a lot. I was in New Jersey, then Pennsylvania, then Arizona. So yeah, so then the last time I went to I had a GI consult, and it was a nurse practitioner that saw me. So I was really interested because she did everything that you told us. Basically she looked through my medical history, did a consult, and then basically told me what I needed to do. I I'm not sure. Are nurse practitioners allowed to do prescriptions as well, prescribe?
Yeah, so it depends on the state that nurse practitioners are licensed by state. So your scope of practice, meaning what you're allowed to do, varies state by state. Unlike physicians, where it's universal, all physicians can do the same thing based on whatever your board certification is. But for nurse practitioners, it really depends. In the state of Arizona, our licenses are wide open. We can do anything. So I basically tell people who don't know that I can do anything a doctor can do in this state. I don't have as extensive as a training as a physician does, and I do have physicians that I consult with when I run into a complex or confusing patient or something that I have never seen before. Nurse practitioners who've worked a lot of years are very, very competent and have a lot of experience. So nurse practitioners license allows them to practice on their own in this state. So you could open up your own shop and have your own private practice, and you would not need a physician to cover you. A physician's assistant, on the other hand, their license is tied to a physician. So they always have to work with physician and have a physician review their charts, but that is not true of a nurse practitioner. We are a freestanding entity. So when you sign up to see a nurse practitioner, they're going to do exactly what the physician would do.
I learned that too. That was really interesting that in Arizona, the nurse practitioner is, I would say, higher than a physician assistant, because the physician assistant is tied to the doctor. Is that correct?
There's not a hierarchy. It's just that their licensing is different.
Okay.
So
Okay.
physicians assistants are just as competent as nurse practitioners, or
Okay.
could be just as competent. Depends on the person. They could be just as competent, but they do require that they work for a physician. My license does not require that. So all that said, students, if you are interested in surgery or orthopedics, or a combination of orthopedics and surgery, I would probably encourage you to become a physician's assistant. Other than that, I would encourage you to become a nurse practitioner, just because you don't have to have your license tied to anybody else's license. But if you like surgery and you're thinking that's the direction you want to go, a physician's assistant is a better option. Nurse practitioners can do it too, because we can do anything anyone trains us to do. So if you found a job with a surgeon that wanted to train you, you could totally do it. But physician's assistants often have more training in surgery. So if that is the direction you want to go, that's what I would suggest. But everybody else, I would really encourage you not to go that route and to become a nurse practitioner.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that tip. So what do you like most about what you do? What do you like most about your job?
Um, I think there's three things. One is, in many ways, you're very autonomous. So
Mm.
because you're working under your own license, and because you are the one that's liable for what you do, you can really make your own decisions. So no one tells me how I should or shouldn't treat a patient. I try to follow the current standard of care and the current scientific literature. So I try to make science-based decisions. But if my colleague disagrees with my plan of care, I don't necessarily have to do what they say. So there's a lot of autonomy.
Yeah.
And I like working with people. I like talking to people all day. And I really like the intellectual pursuit. I enjoy talking with my colleagues and tossing around complicated cases and thinking through medicine. I enjoy researching things that I don't know. And that happens every single day. I am looking stuff up. I'm understanding complex cases. I'm talking to people about what they would do if they had a patient like this. And then I get to teach the patient
Mm.
about what they have and what's going on with them so that they can make educated medical decisions. I really like those pieces of my job.
That's great. So what do you like the least?
Um, I think there's two things I don't like about medicine. Well, three things. One is, in some ways it is the same all the time. So
Mm.
what I do is I see patients. So if you're a person who likes things to change all the time, like project work, I like to work on this, and then I like a totally different thing, medicine is not for you. You do get variety in the patients that you see, but you are still practicing medicine. You are still talking to patients. You're still doing exams, and you're still writing prescriptions. And that is what you do all day long. So if you need more variety, either choose a specialty with a lot of variety, or change specialties, or pick a different career. I don't like the time constraint. I don't like
Yeah.
feeling like I only have 15 minutes to talk to you, and I know I have another patient waiting, and I know there's a patient waiting after that, and I know that I have a phone call I have to return. I don't like that. I would really like to spend all the time that you need me to spend with you. But the way that medicine is set up right now, that is not possible. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
see patients
Mm-hmm.
on a certain time. So I don't like that time pressure. None of us do.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't like the liability. So I don't like this idea that I could make a mistake and it could result in an injury to somebody and then ultimately in a lawsuit. So I am cognizant every day of practicing in a way that protects me from that. And that is tiring. So I
Yeah.
don't, and it's a very litigious society, as we all know. So it can be, that can be a challenge. It's not a reason not to do it, but it's not far from my mind.
Yeah, I could imagine it's stressful too because you kind of have to be really aware if you're doing the right thing, or am I going to mess up, or am I giving them the correct console, that kind of thing. I can imagine that could be stressful in itself, other than that, you're already limited with your time in
Right.
consulting with your patient, and then at the same time you're thinking, it's like, okay, am I doing the right thing, what was the hardest decision that you have to make at work? Have you had any, or like a challenging thing that might have happened?
I mean, it's all challenging. Like
Mm.
you're trying to make the right decision so that the patient gets better, so that they understand what's happening to them, and that you're making the right decision. So that's hard all the time. I think probably for me, the thing that I run up against most is when I am trying to decide if someone is sick enough to be they need to go to the emergency room, because nobody wants to go to the emergency room
Mhm.
because you wait a long time. It's going to cost you potentially a lot of money.
Mhm.
And I don't want to send anyone there that really doesn't need to go there. So sometimes you get a patient where you're kind of on the fence. There's some people that are obvious. You have to go to the emergency room.
Yeah.
You need to go now. And there's some like, well, could we just wait, or should I send you? It's going to be an inconvenience. The person doesn't have insurance. Those are really difficult. It'd be nice to just know that anyone I thought should be in the ER should just go to the ER, and we'll just call it that. So I find that to be a very stressful, how serious is this? And what should I do about it? So those are the most difficult, I think.
Have you worked or dealt with difficult patients that would basically tell you what to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have absolutely worked with difficult patients. I've worked with patients who are in difficult circumstances. My first 6 years of practice, I worked in community health, which was at the time basically uninsured patients. And so
Mhm.
you would make a suggestion to them, and they would tell you they can't do it, they can't afford it, they can't see whoever you need to see, and so that's always frustrating. And yes, there are patients who tell me that now it's time for their antibiotic, and
Yeah.
they know their body and they're ready for it. And so there's a lot of teaching that goes around that, and obviously the whole narcotic piece and
It's
drug seeking is really challenging.
um sorry about that. That's my dog. um so what was gonna say, did you work while you were in school? Did you work full part-time or on when you were pursuing nursing?
So no. So I have an undergraduate degree in another field. Initially, I was going to become an RN, and then work for a couple years as an RN, and then become a nurse practitioner. But I didn't really have any interest in becoming an RN. And so what I ultimately ended up doing was doing an immersion program where I got my BSN, MSN, so that's my Bachelor's of Science in Nursing and my Master's of Science in Nursing, all at the same time. So it was a program that required you to have a bachelor's degree in another field and all the science prerequisites, and then you jumped in and you quickly did a bachelor's of nursing, and then you jumped right into the nurse practitioner program. So it was all day, every day, all around the calendar year for 3 years. So it was very, very intense, and it wasn't really possible to work through that. So
Oh,
I
well,
have never worked as an RN, and I want to be really clear about this for everybody who is thinking about, oh, do I want to be a nurse or do I want to be a nurse practitioner? I want to be super clear about this. They're very, very different jobs. So nursing, it's all medicine, and it's all nursing in that we care about our patients and we work hard to take care of them. But being a nurse is not the same as being a nurse practitioner. It is not the same job. And there's a certain segment of the world that feels like, well, you can't be a nurse practitioner if you've never been a nurse. And I think that is not true. I do think being a nurse before a nurse practitioner just gives you more experience in medicine, but it's not the same job. So if you are on the fence, I would strongly encourage you to shadow a nurse practitioner before you make the decision to become one. Because if you're a nurse now and you think, oh, I think I want to be a nurse practitioner, because it's the same, it isn't. And you should shadow somebody and see what the job looks like actually, because it's a very different job. So not one is not necessarily better than another, but I think some matches some people's personalities better. So you need to, I would strongly encourage you to investigate both of those before you made a choice.
so you did mention that if you don't have that personality to pursue a nurse practitioner or a nursing, what what personal qualities or personality and skills that you will need for this work? So let's say a student wants to be a nurse practitioner. What skills or qualities will they need for this job?
You really have to like making decisions on your own. So you really have to like, someone is not going to tell you what to do, and you're not going to follow through with the order. So oftentimes in nursing, somebody will tell you, this is what we want you to do, carry out these orders. That is not what a nurse practitioner does. They are completely responsible for themselves, and you are making the decision. So you have to feel very comfortable with, I like analyzing a situation and coming up with a solution and putting that into place. oftentimes nurse practitioners work more hours because they're salary, and and you have to stay late. You have to, your your last patient leaves at 5:30 and you may be there until 7 charting, whereas a nurse usually has a set shift. So you have to be sort of okay with that. I think more liability falls on your shoulders as a nurse practitioner. So I think you have to want to investigate what is wrong with the person. You have to like to problem solve and be excited about coming up with a plan and putting it into play. So nurses don't make diagnoses, and they don't put plans of medical care into place. They do have nursing care plans, but it's not the same thing. So nurses have a lot more hands-on patient care, and they take care of their patients directly, and they're usually following somebody else's orders. Sometimes ICU nurses and ER nurses have more autonomy, but that's essentially it. So it's a little bit more of hands-on patient care. So you have to. So that's why I said if you're thinking about one or the other, or going from one to the other, it's not just a continuation of one thing that is now at the next step. It isn't that. It's two separate careers. And that's where I think you can benefit from informational interviewing and also shadowing somebody and see what they do all day.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, because being that it uses the same noun, nurse, a nurse and a nurse practitioner. So immediately you would think that, oh, I can start being a nurse and then it will just go up to become a nurse practitioner, when actually they're two different careers. There's two different set of responsibilities, two different skills needed actually, because some people do like to follow orders. They want to be told what to do, and some likes to be autonomous, like you have to make your own decision. It reminds me of my son. We always say that he's good for the military because he would do anything as long as you tell him what to do. He's good at following orders, and he has his set breakfast time. He says set lunch time. He's very set that way. He won't how should I say, he won't go outside of what he was told to do, so to speak. What would be the salary range as a nurse to be salary range for a nurse practitioner?
So that's gonna vary a lot. So, for example, flag staff, for the most part, nurse practitioners are underpaid. So if you really want to make top dollar as a nurse practitioner, you need to go to a larger city. Seattle would be an example. There's a number of ways that nurse practitioners can get paid. As a general rule, people who work in a specialty make more money than people who work in primary care. So there's a number of different types of nurse practitioners. So when you finish your degree, you get your master's in nursing, and then you have to sit for what we call the nurse practitioner boards, because most licenses require you to be board certified. So you have to pass an exam. And there's different kinds of nurse practitioners. I am board certified in family practice. There are now, this wasn't true when I was going to school, but now there is a board certification in like acute care, which means you could work in the hospital as a sort of hospitalist. In other words, not as a nurse, but seeing patients that have been admitted to the hospital and making medical decisions around those patients. There are nurse practitioner anesthetists that act as anesthesiologists. So they, in small towns, oftentimes you can't get an anesthesiologist to come, so that you have a nurse practitioner as your anesthesiologist. And we use those at the GI center for like colonoscopies and things. There's a psych nurse practitioner, which all they do is manage psych meds, women's health nurse practitioner, but I would discourage you from doing that because those jobs are harder to come by, and a family practice nurse practitioner can do women's health too. So you don't need the specialty of women's health. Pretty much family practice can do anything. So if you decided you loved cardiology and someone would train you on what they wanted you to do and know, you could work with a cardiologist, you could work with any specialty. So you'll probably make more money working in a specialty clinic. Some nurse practitioners are paid on what we call production. So you're usually given a salary, and then you get a percentage of what you code. So every patient you see, you have to write a code for based on the complexity of the visit and how long you spent with them. And that is how it is billed to insurance. And so you make a percentage of essentially the number of patients you see and the levels that you code them at. So if you see highly complex patients or do a lot of procedures, you would make more money than a person who saw sore throats all day. So in this community, I would say 90,000 ish would probably be on the lower end, and on the upper end, maybe 120,000. But 120,000 in a city like Seattle would be pretty standard, and you could potentially make significantly more than that.
That's interesting with the specialty of the nurse practitioner. The one that you had mentioned about depending on the code that you do or how you code it reminds me of like a commission, you know?
It's
Sort of like because you're paid by the percentage of how many patients you've seen, and depending as well on the code, you know, the complexity of the work that you had to do. So that's really interesting. You've opened my eyes to this world of nurse practitioner because, like I said, this is all new to me. And when I saw that nurse practitioner who gave all my consult, I was really interested because in New Jersey, the physician assistant is more prevalent than the nurse practitioner. They may be some, but the person I spoke with said that because different states have different laws about nurse practitioners,
Yep.
so maybe that New Jersey doesn't have a law for them to be able to practice on their own, so there are not a lot of them, which is why I'm not that familiar. So, and I think what other benefit? Well, when if you're hired, are some nurse practitioners hired by salary? Are salaried?
Almost everybody's salary.
Almost everybody. So
and it's calculated as an hourly wage. So they figure it out as an hourly wage, but you don't get paid hourly. So you don't punch a clock. You don't file a time card. You just, they say, oh, you make $50 an hour. So times 40 hours a week, times 52 weeks a year. This is what your yearly, and you get production on top of that. But Flagstaff in particular doesn't do a lot of production medicine, but bigger cities, you would absolutely run into that.
Okay. What other benefits are included in a job? Like, if other than if you're doing your own practice, if you're working for a particular hospital or a company, do you get the same benefits as other employees when it comes to health insurance, vacation, pension, all that kind of thing?
Yeah, you definitely. I don't think I've worked anywhere where I wasn't offered full benefits. There's usually a 401k. Nurse practitioners usually get start around 3 weeks or 4 weeks off a year, and then they're usually, because your license requires you to do continuing education, you are usually allotted weeks off for continuing education, and you probably wouldn't take a job unless they did offer you that. So that could be, we offer 1 to 2 weeks off for continuing education, and then they usually give you a dollar amount that you can spend on continuing education. So it depends on who you work for. Super small private practice, you may not get those kind of benefits, but a large Kaiser Permanente is going to offer their nurse practitioners probably a couple weeks off a year to do continuing ed, and somewhere between $1,500 to $5,000 to spend on continuing ed a year.
So the time that they allow you to, say the 2 weeks that they allow you to do continuing ed or professional development, is that separate from a normal vacation days that they give you? Oh, yeah. That's good.
Okay, because you're expected to use that time to either do online classes or travel somewhere to go to a conference, and then usually they pay, they'll pay for the conference and your hotel or whatever. It's part of that, whatever money they allow you for continuing ed, because your license requires that you get continuing ed. So most companies make it so that you can do that fairly easily to keep up with your licensure.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Do you need to renew your license every year?
No, I think it's what is it with the state of Arizona? I think it's 2 years. I can't actually remember. It's 2 or 3 years. So
Okay.
I'm licensed by the state of Arizona. So I have an RN license and I have a nurse practitioner license through the state of Arizona, and I have to pay for both of those and
Mhm.
renew those both on whatever it is, 2 or 3 years.
Oh, okay.
And then I am credentialed by a nurse practitioner group,
Uh-huh.
and every 5 years I have to renew my credentials, and that's my board certification. So it says that I am credentialed by this body, and so I have to submit all my continuing education that I have done for them, and fill out oodles of paperwork and pay them money, and then they say, oh, you're credentialed. And so that if you're my employer and you're like, oh, who's your credentialer, they can call them up and say, oh, is Gretchen credentialed? And they'll be like, yep, she's credentialed through 2026 or whatever it is. So you need both of those pieces.
Wow. So really, a person who wants to pursue this career and go this path has to be aware, and how should I say, no, and should be aware and ready to commit to this long-term professional development, to this long, because it doesn't stop right after you receive your MSN or your credentials, and that's it. You have to continue, which I can understand, because in the field of medicine things change. The same thing with technology, the same thing with education. You really have to keep up with what's current in order for you to be more productive, in order for you also to be more, should I say, I can't think of the word right now. I used to be an ESL teacher, so whenever I cannot think of the word in English, I always say I'm having an ESL moment. I know what it is in my language, but I can't think of it in English. More competitive, so to speak.
Well, I mean, this is information you want to know. You do continuing education in stuff that you use, so that you're up to date on what the current standard of care is, so that you're giving your patients what is considered evidence-based care. And the only way to keep up on that is to study it.
Yep.
So you
Yep.
do, these every year, go to a big conference where they cover,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be called the Primary Care Conference, and you'll learn all the new stuff on hypertension and diabetes, and you'll get up to speed. So yeah, you have to do it, and you want to do it. It is a lifetime commitment though, until you're done practicing and you let these licenses go. And if you prescribe scheduled medications, narcotics, for example, you have to have what's called a DEA license, Department of, can't think of it. Anyway, and that you have to buy every few years. And that gives you the ability to prescribe scheduled medications. Without that, you cannot prescribe those. So you have to buy that every year. And if you work for the right employer, they pay for it. It's kind of expensive. I think it's about $700.
Wow.
But you work for the right employer, and that's
They'll
part of what
pay.
they do. They just pay
Yeah,
for that. So
that's good. So, thank you so much. That was a wealth of information that for me was very helpful.
can I tell you one other thing? So you talked
Yeah,
about
sure.
benefits, and
Uh-huh.
this may apply to people who are interested in going into this field. So there is a federal program, of which I am blanking on the name of it. I'll think of it. Um, there's two ways you can get money from them. If you agree to work in an underserved area, in an underserved clinic, before you start school, meaning you have to sign on for, it's either 2 or 3 years, um, and agree to do that, they will fund your education and they will give you a stipend. You have to do what you said you would do, though. So at the end of your education, they will give you a list of clinics that you can apply to, and you have to work for one of those for whatever your commitment is. And basically, the only way to get out of it is to die. Otherwise, you are obligated, and it's no joke, because you owe them back in triple plus interest. So if you renege on the deal, the other way you can do that is, if when you're all done with your education and you have whatever you owe in loans, you can do the federal loan repayment. And so what you do is, again, you work for an underserved clinic, and they give you a list of where you can pick, and it's all over the country. You can apply for a job, and if you get accepted, again, you owe them, at the time I did it, it was 2 years, and they will cut you a check, and you can pay off your loans. And again, you owe them the time that you said you would work for them, and your loans are completely paid. in full. And it could be even undergraduate loans. So it's not just pretty much, they kept asking me if I wanted more money. I didn't have any more loans. I'm like, dang, I should have taken out more loans. But it's a great way to basically get a free education and serve your community. Some clinics are really challenging to work in, so you'd want to be really selective. But it's a way you can get the money up front, and it's the way that you can get the money later. And that's at the federal level. And I think it is federal loan repayment. I think it is.
It probably is. It might. There's a similar program with education, with teacher education. The first option that you mentioned before they start their education, is that while they're in high school when they serve?
Well, so you'd have to be a nurse practitioner. I don't think it would cover nursing. You'd have
Okay.
to check. You'd have to check. But if you did a program where you went all the way through, I got my nursing degree and and I was planning on going all the way through and getting my MSN, then they might cover that. I do know of people in the program I was in, again, it was this immersion program, who got the money up front plus the stipend, so that covered their books, it covered a little bit of their rent, and it paid for their tuition, with their obligation at the end, and that was all covered. So again, the end game there, nobody was ending with the BSN, everybody was going all the way to MSN. So it's something to look into if you're a person who either is worried about taking out a lot of loans or doesn't have the ability to get loans. It's a great way. You do have to work for a certain type of clinic with a certain type of patient population, which can be challenging, but it's interesting and you learn a lot the first few years you're in practice. So something to consider, and I consider that sort of a benefit if you're interested in pursuing that.
Yeah, because the first option that you said doesn't seem to have like a minimum number of years that you work for them, because you said that you have to stay.
Everything does, and I think it was 2 when I did it. I just don't know if it's 2. Physicians, I think 03.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of the reason that physicians come and work on the reservation, because they qualify. Working on the reservation qualifies for loan repayment.
For loan payments.
That.
Yeah.
And some states offer the same program. So if you're interested in that, you can look at the federal level, and then you can look at whatever state you live in. The state one, at the time I was working, I was in Washington. And in Washington states, they paid you quarterly. So you had to continue to pay on the loan and pay the interest. Whereas the feds, they just cut you a check. So you just turned around, they cut you $60,000 and you turned around and paid your loan off. And if you do it ahead of time, if you sign up ahead of time, then you don't take out loans because it's all paid for by them. So you just pay for your as you go. It's only after the fact. If you're like, hey, you know what? I think I want to see if I can do this. But you have to do it. You cannot get out of it. It would be financially devastating. So you really have to want to do it and find a place that works for you, because literally, unless you're dead, there's no way out.
Yeah, it's similar to the teacher education program. They pay for your education, but then you have to give at least 2 years, from what I know, from like in New Jersey, you have to give at least 2 years working in a Title I schools.
Same thing.
And if you leave, that you pay a lot more than what you would be getting if you took a loan. So yeah. So so what thank you, I thank you very much for all this information, Gretchen. So what advice would you give a high school student, one piece of advice, or maybe two, can you give to a high school student who's thinking of nursing, taking up this profession?
Okay, so I have 2 pieces of advice. One is, if you have the opportunity to either do an internship or get a job somewhere in medicine, even if you're just doing the reception thing, or whether you're working as a scribe in an ER, anything where you're in the midst of medical care, just to see what it looks like, to see if you like the stresses of what you see going on around you, if you like the excitement of it. even if if you volunteer for a couple weeks, just so that you're an eyewitness to it and say, yeah, this looks really fun to me. Like I can see myself running around like this. It looks great. Or, oh my God, this is so stressful. I would never want to do this. I don't like it. I don't want blood. I don't want to make these decisions. It would give you a great bird's eye view. And even again, if it was just an internship or just a volunteer for a couple weeks. And then the second thing I would do is do two things. I would do as much informational interviewing of people who do the thing you think you want to do, and then really try to shadow somebody for a day to see if what you think they do is actually what they do. Because you may be like, oh, you do that, oh, I don't want to do this, or oh, that's really cool, I do want to do that. That's what I would suggest. Nursing careers, and I don't care whether you're an RN or an NP, there is so much you can do, particularly with an RN. You can do 1,001 things. So the job doesn't look the same for any. I hate hospitals. I don't want to work in a hospital. Great. You can work in a school. You can go abroad and work. There's so much you can do. And nurse practitioners have a lot of that kind of flexibility too. So your career could look any way you want it to, and it could change. You could be like, well, I'm sick of hospital nursing, or I'm sick of working in primary care. I think I want to go work at GI for a while. I think I want to do cardiology. I think I want to go get another board certification and do psych now, which I've never done. I'm interested in that. So lots of options. So try to hear what people are saying. Try not to go in with, I think the job is this. Watch and see if the job really is what you think it is. And medicine requires a certain person. So you really want to be sure before you spend a lot of energy getting a degree that you're like, well, I want to do this, or, oh, I love this. It's perfect. That's my advice.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Gretchen, for those piece of advices. You have been so helpful, and this was such a great interview. I've learned a lot myself. I'm how should I say? I'm a learner. I like to learn different things, and when you were talking about if you get bored easily, if you want variety, and I'm like that, so I had to be like shifting from one project or one thing to another. So that was a great insight on that too, depending on what they really wanted to do, if they want routine or they want variety, that takes into that takes a big part in their decision making to as to which one they really want to go pursue and go through. So thank you so much, Gretchen, for your time. Thank you so much for this wonderful interview. It was such a pleasure speaking with you today, and for those words of wisdom for our young students who are thinking of going into the sciences and the medical degree. I believe that there is a path for everyone, and each path is special, and you've chosen a special path. And whatever our students decide to do, we wish them luck. And I wish you the best of luck with your current assignment or what you're doing right now. So
thank you.
Looks exciting, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you,
Hey,
Gretchen.
thank you. And I wish everybody luck as they pursue the things that they think they might want to do. And I think your path can, even if you start down this path and you decide it's not for you, what you've done helps you go to the next place. So there is no wasted time. So enjoy your learning process, and I wish you all the best in figuring out what you'd like to be.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Yep, I'm just gonna stop this, and I thank you very much, Gretchen. Really,
Sure.
Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Hey, thanks. You too, and good luck with putting this together.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.